Very good afternoon and welcome to the Novarch webinar series on designing healthy spaces post COVID-19. This is our third webinar titled Redefining Industrial and Logistic Spaces. So, we've all grown accustomed to seeing these graphs lately. But what is the crisis? Have we actually analyzed the crisis? And I always like to stress the importance of searching for opportunities in a crisis. Typically, all crises have three phases. So the first phase, which we are currently in, is a phase where nothing is in our control and we're just sort of reacting to whatever happens and whatever the disease throws up. And it's known that phase one normally lasts 3 to 4 months. Phase two is when things start normalizing slightly. There might be a second wave during this time, but that again lasts another 3 to 4 months. And there is a little medium demand, and things start picking up, and organizations open, and the manufacturing starts. But phase three is when the crisis gets over, and suddenly there is a very high demand. And if we don't work to get ourselves prepared in phase one and phase two, then we lose out on phase three, and that's when a lot of companies, a lot of industries actually lose a lot of opportunities. So, what is the opportunity? I mean, especially for India, we've been seeing these kind of news all over the paper and news channels lately, where the world is looking to India as a manufacturing center now. So, how are our industries coping up, and what are the steps that our industries need to take to be COVID ready and to ensure that we don't lose out on this opportunity? So, how can our industries bounce back? How should I plan my built infrastructure to make my factory and my logistics space and my warehouse COVID ready? Of course, there are policy matters, and these are related to the government, uh, which we have no control of. Things like there is uh, the local DM ensures what precautions and what things have to be done in a factory, and all the guidelines being issued are just advisories. But you see, these are not in our control, and this is when government will make their own decisions and policy. Of course, we need to talk about it and ensure that all our industry associations are talking to the government and putting in their recommendations through any forum possible so that our voice gets across to the government when they actually formulate guidelines. Then there are your sales, people, process, and finance parameters, which you have to sit down with your project managers, your process consultants, and finalize. But today we're going to be focusing on built infrastructure. How can I plan my built infrastructure to be COVID ready? And I hopefully this session will give a lot of insights about things that you can do so that you have a holistic picture in place and you can actually implement things in a systematic order in your factory or your logistic warehouse or logistic space. So let's start by looking at two case studies. The first case study I've looked at is the Volkswagen Germany factory, which is started with a truncated workforce. What they've implemented is that they're now working in two shifts, and there is a 1 hour gap between the shifts where they sanitize the entire space. They've implemented temporary, visible glass screens between each department in the production floor, so that people feel safe. They've implemented social distancing. They've actually gone on to implement open standing huddles rather than sitting down in a room and discussing things. This way, through the floor markings, they have ensured social distancing, and it's a quick way of meeting and discussing strategies on the shop floor. Their HVAC system has been recalibrated to have higher fresh air, and they've implemented a lot of hand wash and sanitization stations throughout the shop floor. Case study two is the Amazon fulfillment centers in India. They've done 4 or 5 things as well. They've implemented social distancing. The cafeteria space has been reconfigured. They've got thermometer, the temperature checking stations at various places. A lot of high traffic areas, they've implemented PPE, complete PPE uniforms for their staff, as well as screens to ensure social distancing in the high traffic areas. Of course, sanitizing stations and things like that. Right, so how do I plan my industry and logistic building? We've looked at it as a 6 point strategy. the first and foremost thing is the assessment and planning of the premise, where we advise everyone to hire a professional, or look, or if you have an in-house team, get them to do a complete assessment of your existing factory in terms of the material flow, the people flow, the services, and the logistics and external development. Ensure that you have everything mapped out. What is your current movement of materials? What is the current movement of people? How do visitors and staff enter your premise? What is the storage mechanism, the flooring mechanisms that you use, the admin office, the laboratory spaces? Ensure that you have everything mapped so that when you look at those sketches, it will be very easy for you to do a holistic planning rather than just knee-jerk short-term solutions for your office. The second point is that we are advising all our clients to start looking at a box in box strategy. So let's say if you take this typical factory project of ours, the area in blue line is actually going to be an open production space for them, where they have a lot of machines and departments and things like that. What we're now telling them to do is to actually look at segregating these departments by temporary, flexible, different types of screens that are available, so that each department is segregated from the other. The movement of people is restricted to their department for most of the time. We're even telling them to stagger the in and out times of people, so that let's say if department 1 checks in at 9 a.m., department 2 can check in at 9:15 a.m. This gives 15 minutes for people to enter the factory, change, get to their work desk or their machine or whatever, and it just reduces and kills mingling with other department members. So the idea is to implement segregated spaces within the work area, the shop floor. Similarly, for warehouses, large warehouses which we've designed, we've told people to start implementing flexible partitions based on the multiple shutters that are already there in a department. So you have truck loading bays, a little patio, and then you have a threshold through which this area is accessed. Now suddenly you can actually start segregating your warehouse into different sections based on the SKUs that you store, thereby minimizing any chance of the spread of contamination from one department to the other department. And the people in that department can feel safe and secure. Different types of screens and strategies are available to implement box in box. You don't have to go in for expensive permanent partitions. It can be temporary, flexible screens so that they can be shifted. If you want to increase the size of a department or reduce, you can do that. So a lot of examples how you can achieve this. Just showing another sketch where this is for a large logistic park, like a food park that we've designed, where you have multiple production units, you have common amenities, and you have a common institutional area. And this sketch clearly shows how we put in these thresholds, at the entrance, at the start of the common utility area, as well as at the entrance to all the individual factories, where you can implement screening systems and sanitization systems that we'll talk about. Then, so what are these temporary types of temporary partitions that you can implement to get into a box in box strategy? Well, you can put fabric partitions, you can do like 7-8 feet high temporary partitions installed through the shop floor. You can actually look at, button operated electrical retractable partition systems which offer visual connectivity as well. You can look at movable screens. You can look at curtains with some visual access. Um, so anything. I mean, you can actually just devise your own way of segregating departments, such that it's flexible, it's cost effective, and it gives people the necessary safeguard that yes, they are in their own little space and not exposed to contamination from the entire workforce. So very effective ways of implementing box in box strategy. And then please look at your access systems, the existing storage doors, etc., or creating new doors to departments. Try and make them automatic touchless retractable systems so that we minimize contact, because otherwise it will be very difficult to start sanitizing them over and over again. So you can even go in for temporary scaffolding sheets or polythene with a little frame, sort of segregation. The next important thing is people. I mean, all our industry units, all our warehouses, logistics, they are dependent on people, and people need to feel safe and secure. So these are some examples where people are looking at putting little devices on each worker's place. So then there is a little buzzer as soon as person comes close by. Thermometer checks, temperature checks, ensuring that people are at a safe distance when they get meals, not allowing food from outside, but actually giving people, packed boxes for lunch, etc., so that there is a lesser chance of, unsolicited external things coming into your factory. And the third is awareness, which is the biggest problem in India, because a lot of our workforce is uneducated. A lot of our workforce uh, is not aware of the new hygiene that is prevalent now. So some of our clients are actually implementing the pledge routine twice a day, where it's a small, 15, 20-second pledge that people recite in groups, and it talks about social hygiene and well-being and all of that. So it sort of ingrains these ideas into the living style of people, which is very important. So social distancing can be implemented through floor markings very effectively. Like you can see these images, just ensure that people go or stand only on where the floor marking is there. You can do it in warehouses whereby you define directions, you define alleys, movement paths, and areas which are not to be trespassed. You, Again, let's have proper entry exits plan, ideally touchless. You can have railings to do it for you. Very interesting, large packaging lines or assembly lines. How do you ensure social distancing there? Well, you could put in some screens, like you have an assembly line with a multiple number of people working, and there are these little screens which give people their own private space to work in, and they don't, and they you sort of avoid the chance of them mingling with each other. Similarly, for this assembly line here, you could put in these type of movable modular screens, so they can be reconfigured at any time if you wish to change the configuration. And then putting in hygiene solutions, putting in queuing systems, segregating toilets, the urinal areas. You'll have to do that, because otherwise you have to implement social distancing amongst in your premise. Then common contact surfaces, they can, like your handles, etc. You get these little attachments by which people can start using them with their elbow or their arm instead of their hands. Putting in sanitizing dispensing stations, which are either foot operated or touchless. Uh, then a lot of times you'll be looking at creating some shelters within your campus for some staff that may have to stay over in your premise, or who's working long shifts, so they have to rest. So think about these things and come up with your solutions to enable people. Then material, again a very important component. The minute you implement the box and box strategy, you can actually then start streamlining your material flow, because then your department heads can be given time slots when their material will be available for uh, when their raw material will be available, and similarly when you will take the finished goods from their department to the next department. So you are again channelizing and streamlining the flow of material. Your store operator will only send the desired material at that specific time to that department, and so the sort of cross material movement will be eliminated, and you will have clear aisles which can be sanitized regularly, and the departments can be sanitized independently of those aisles. So suddenly a lot of opportunities of creating a sanitized and a better enabled space start emerging from the box and box. You can also use certain devices for sanitizing materials. UV light is a very good example. Of course, touchless access to your stores, etc., is extremely important. Then you can use technology, like especially for warehouses. Maybe retrieving can be done through robots. We've got a client who's actually designed a completely automated factory, with complete material handling, requiring no manual effort at all. Similarly, for your warehouses, etc., you can implement a bioturbo system, which is a very precise and high definition way of purifying the air and and creating a space free of a lot of infection. So that's an interesting thing. And then we come to the logistics part of it. Logistics is very important because this actually involves the external workforce, external vehicles coming into your premise and going out of your premise. So they are a they're a very high risk factor of bringing contamination in. So, like in this sketch that you see, we've ensured that we've actually minimized the movement of the trucks for the incoming material as well as for the outgoing material to a minimum. Ensure that you don't allow external vehicles to come deep inside your campus. Uh, Make sure that you've actually screened those vehicles properly and sanitized them, which we'll show you. Similarly, for warehouses, minute you start implementing box in, box out, you can create these little thresholds at the beginning of each warehouse space, so that your warehouses are safe from external vehicle and the external goods that come in. Then this is an example of an ICD that we've designed, which is an inland container depot, a large site, a lot of material handling, a lot of logistic support needed in this project. So we've actually proposed, a vehicle disinfection tunnel as well, along with a person's disinfection tunnel, so that every time a vehicle comes in and out of the campus, it is disinfected, and we've created these little areas which will act as the nodes from where any movement in and out of my campus will be there. We've also segregated an area on the site which will ensure that all internal vehicles, like the reach stackers, forklifts, etc., will be parked, and there will be a disinfection area there, so that we disinfect them after every trip or before a trip that they are about to make. So very important to curtail infection through this machines and equipments. Then I'm sure most of you have a warehouse management system. Speak to them. There will be a way to optimize it so that there is less touch required. People can actually do a lot of stuff, through automation or through voice recognition and things like that. Define zones, like the boxes. You can define these zones in your warehouses which actually work independently. And then look into robots. I mean, especially waste handling and a lot of things you can actually do it through through simple robots, and ensure that you've got your waste sorted out. The waste handling needs to be done properly. Please do not create dump zones within your campus. They have to be Waste has to be cleared immediately, either reused, decomposed, or sent away to whichever unit that you are normally send your waste to immediately. Then we come to services. Ventilation is going to be a key factor in planning your services now. ISHRE has come out with revised guidelines. You need to now start looking at least 10 to 15 air changes per hour within your campus, maybe even higher. Uh, Try and put in at least 70% of fresh air into your system. In case of evaporative cooling, please disinfect the water that you're using, as well as use UV lights for disinfection. You can even use ozone chambers or whatever you feel like, but you have to look at it. And then for evaporative cooling systems, ensure that you flush the entire system out. So that means you will run your system, without water for at least 30 minutes. You will run the water pumps, without fan, and just for water circulation for 30 minutes to weed out any bacterial growth inside. And then flush the tanks out every day. Recharge your system with fresh water, so that your the bacteria that has bred in the water is completely flushed out. Then energy efficiency. We've talked a lot about this in previous sessions. Um, Factories have a great opportunity to generate clean energy. So let's do that. And we need to look at our waste, look at natural STPs and ways to reuse water. Maybe there are good ways, passive ways of actually generating energy or recharging rainwater into the ground, etc. So you need to look at all of this. So yeah, so let's drive change. Let's talk to government bodies about policy, but also look inside our own units and do whatever we can to be in compliance with the new hygiene, to build healthy campuses and spread the word. Um, we would be happy as an organization to collaborate with you and do any knowledge sharing sessions with the industry associations, within your team or as you feel necessary. Let's all, try and beat the COVID and be COVID ready as soon as our factories and logistic parks and warehouses and any industrial premise open. Thank you so much.